This is Rating Descending,
where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to.
I'm Michelle St. Clair.
I'm Abigail Ward.
And this week we watched Highlander 2, The Quickening. In the future, Highlander Connor McLeod must prevent the destruction of Earth under an anti-ozone shield. Let's watch. I'm so fucking excited about this episode.
I'm more excited.
Okay. You're allowed to be more excited.
I'm definitely more excited.
I'm so excited about this episode, but because there's so much to talk about, I want to just go right into it and introduce our guest, filmmaker and comedian Charnstar Anderson. Hey!
Hi.
Hey, guys, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I'm actually the most excited, so
okay.
sorry.
Okay.
It's funny you say that because I was scoping you out and I was like, I think he is a bit more excited than me. But I just didn't. I hoped you wouldn't bring it up.
See, I was trying to keep it back, but it's just so exciting.
No, I like that you're proud of it. Yeah, I like that you're proud of it.
Carry that into the world. That's good to put it, embroider it and put it up, live, laugh, love, be the most excited for the world.
Isn't it embarrassing though that Michelle's not as excited as you or I? She's definitely at the bottom of this excitement hierarchy, right?
Look, I didn't want to point it out, but of the food pyramid of excitement. Sorry.
But it's funny because at the bottom it is the widest amount. So technically she could be winning. I don't know.
You know what? Pyramids
don't make sense.
The more you poke at me, the stronger I get. I am cringe, all right? If that's what I'm gonna be, that's who I am.
No shame.
No shame. You know what? You two look like you're just trying to shame me, and here I am getting stronger every day. The audience is gonna be with me, right, gang? Yeah. Oh, that silence is deafening.
Oh man, that audience.
Our one audience member.
The single audience member in the studio, they screamed out, so that's good.
We do keep a little man in the corner just for our reaction.
It's Brooke. It's
I'm Brooklyn. It's offensive the way you've depicted your love on this show.
Just love of my life, and I'm like, hi, I'm Brooklyn. Chance to tell us about yourself.
If I ever meet her, I'm going to be disappointed she doesn't sound like that.
Oh no, she definitely does sound like that.
Oh, good.
It's insane.
We're going to have her one time on the podcast, but the joke for us is that it's just me doing a voice.
But then it's Brooke doing your voice.
I look forward to that.
Oh yeah, Brooke is doing my voice.
And then Charnstar comes in to sub for me because I couldn't make it that day.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Yeah. But yeah, Charnstar, tell us about yourself. You've been a comedian for a long time. You've been a filmmaker. I met you watching one of your films at a film festival in Brisbane that I honestly can't remember the name of.
I genuinely...
I remember that the film was, Pizza Deliverance?
Yeah. So the film was Pizza Deliverance. And I remember I stayed up way too late because I was meeting too many cool people at that festival, like yourself. Nice. And I was really tired the whole time. I'm hoping no one noticed, just I do not stay up past 9.
Wow.
Did I give off that vibe?
Do you give off the vibe that you don't stay up past 9? Or that you were tired? You didn't give off the vibe that you were tired because I was too in my own head being like, I'm really anxious in meeting all of these people. I really hope that my friend here will introduce me to everyone.
That's the great secret about meeting people. You worry how you come off, but they're just busy worrying about how they come off. So no one really notices what you're doing anyway. You can get away with literal murder.
This is some pretty anti-shame talk from the person who was shaming me about 30 seconds ago.
It's just Michelle knows a lot about murder. She's literally strangling a small child as we speak.
That's funny.
It's true.
I'm
seeing it in front of me. It's wild.
It's funny for us.
This is an inside joke from 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, pretty good.
Why weren't other people listening 5 minutes ago, guys? Rewind back. You'll hear it. It was great.
Well, actually, Brooke was listening, so she thinks it's really funny.
What did Brooke think about it?
I thought it was pretty funny, but I didn't like how it was going against the love of my life, Michelle St. Clair.
So she's Southern now.
Yeah, sure. She's Southern. Listeners, if you go back into -0, you'll hear it. It's great. It's pretty funny.
Charnstar. Back to you. Tell us about yourself.
I'm a filmmaker type guy. I make short films. Shane Anderson, who was on the podcast, I think I pimp out his film Red Curtain Hell more than he did. I'm just a small bit part in it, but I can't remember. Did he pimp it on this podcast last time?
I think I pimped it more than he did, but he did.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, because I'll be doing the pimping later. Don't worry.
Excellent.
I never pimp myself. I'm very ashamed of my own work, but for my friends, I'll be like, no, you got to see it.
Oh my God, it should be like a pay it forward system. Someone else pimps your work, you pimp Shane's, etc., etc.
Oh, yeah, that'd be beautiful. If the world worked in such a beautiful way, man.
It's like a big conga line of pimping.
That's to skate over that. That's all I want from this podcast is to just like pimp the people we know and be like, hey, everyone, check out these like small Australian filmmakers and comedians. Check them out.
Yeah.
And hopefully that can be the tagline of the podcast, just a conga line of pimpin'.
Conga line of pimping.
Yeah, guys, we're scrapping where we watch IMDb's Worst 250 so you don't have to, and we're introducing conga line of pimpin'.
I thought the tagline was now no shame. No shame.
No shame. Well, that's the reviewer quote in
Live
the corner.
ironically.
Raja Eba, no shame.
No shame.
It's not necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing. It's just a factual statement.
Yeah, exactly. There's no morality ascribed to it. But Charnstar, we brought you on for a very particular reason. You notably wrote an essay about Highlander 2, our film of the week, a few years ago.
So exciting.
How did that
sure
happen?
Well, back in my day when I was in high school, because when I entered film school, I was a mature age student. And I remember in high school, I was bad at essays because, ADHD brain, I get very bored very easily.
That's
So
relatable.
my whole plan was every single essay I write was going to be a joke. And that was the plan. And we got into, I think it was film history, and we were talking about German expressionism. And a big thing about Highlander 2 that people like to point out is the fact that it came out right after Blade Runner. And Blade Runner has these, like, really great designs in how the future looks.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that because there was literally a bit where we were watching Highlander 2 last night and I was like, are they just trying to rip off a Blade Runner scene? Like it felt like they were trying to rip off the Roy monologue scene where like there's this like synthy music playing and they're looking out of windows. Anyway, it was very Blade Runner-esque.
So that was the whole thing. Like, I know that everyone points out that. So I was like, you know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to go down and I'm going to be like, no. Highlander 2 is truly inspired by German expressionism. And I went through all of the history of the making of how they shot the film, of Russell Mulcahy's filmography. And the more I researched, the more I found out that I was right. And Russell Mulcahy absolutely is inspired by German expressionism, and it is all throughout his filmography, down to the point that he directed a lot of episodes of Teen Wolf, the TV show.
Oh, wow.
And I have an old friend who used to write a Teen Wolf blog because I only have the coolest friends. And I just reached out to her and I was like, hey, do you know any episodes of Teen Wolf that would be inspired by German expressionism? And I sent her kind of like this is what German expressionism is. And she sent back a list of episodes and literally every single one of them was directed by Russell Mulcahy.
Oh my God.
That's so strange.
That's
It was
incredible.
a beautiful moment.
So wait, I remember because I think I did the Highlander 1 episode. I do remember that.
Highlander 3.
Highlander
3. Oh my God. That Russell Mulcahy, was he an Australian director that did a lot of music videos? Was that?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So he
okay.
did a lot of Cyndi Lauper, a lot of Queen, a lot of Madonna. All of them like really like strongly backlit with all these really sharp lines going through the scene. All very German expressionism.
Yeah, because I mean, music videos are so visual. It is all about the atmosphere rather than the story,
That was also like
which really comes out in this film.
The era of filmmaking where like a lot of directors cut their teeth in music videos. So it makes sense that Russell Mulcahy was like, yeah. I'm going to be inspired by this. I'm going to show off every cool thing I can do. And then I'm going to go make off some of the most bonkers movies ever made.
Because like you really can just go absolutely balls to the walls with a lot of music videos. Like we were even making references to like Bonnie Tyler's like Total Eclipse of the Heart music video.
Which he directed, didn't he?
What?
Did he?
I mean, cut that out if I'm wrong, but
Oh my God, I know he did.
I'm pretty
some
sure that
Bonnie
was
Tyler.
one of the ones
I'm gonna
I
look it up now.
specifically pulled from.
It was directed by Russell Mulcahy.
Oh my God. Sorry, we're just talking at the moment.
Sorry, Michelle. We're in a moment here.
So cringe.
Sorry,
She does this all
Yeah,
the time.
jeez.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm getting the feeling of that. Jeez.
But in particular, the scenes between Connor and Louise, we were like, that's fucking, like, he's going to say turn around, bright eyes. And to find out that he, like, of course he did the music video. That totally makes sense. So you found that it really was inspired by a lot of this, like, German expressionism and stuff. Was that, like,
absolutely.
the end thesis still? Are you a defender of the film?
Yeah.
100%. I am a defender of the film in a way. I would probably not say that on an objective level that this is a good film. I would say it's probably a very, very bad film. But you can learn so much from watching this film. And I feel like from a visual standpoint as well, like Russell Mulcahy really did like pull out all fucking guns on this crazy music video. Yeah, no, I wouldn't say it's a good film. I strongly suggest people watch it.
I think something we've talked about is the fact that we don't mind. Like what we don't like in this list is where we watch a bad film and there's just been no effort put into it. They assume it's going to be a bad film. They're not trying. But we fucking love it when people are trying really hard and they make an absolute disaster. That's what we're here for. And this film, objectively not good, but subjectively one of my favorite films ever. Like I want to watch it again and again and again. It's up there with like Ultraviolet for me.
Having Connor McLeod in a 2024 future where there's no light, which is never explained. Flying a hoverboard to chase down a porcupine man with like jet wings is before like a lip marked truck explodes to give him back his youth. It's how could I not love that film?
And not only that, like this film, like at the time, these visual effects are insanely good. Well, the special effects, special effects are really like that entire setup. That there's a whole behind the scenes documentary where they focus 20 minutes on just that setup. They don't talk about the fact that they had to change all the designs because Back to the Future 2 came out as they were shooting, so they had to change the design so it didn't look so much like a skateboard.
Oh my god!
Wow.
Like you'll notice, there's only like one composited scene in that entire thing. Otherwise, they're all on boards flying around. They've got like elastic things up their legs, so when they like lift it up, they can put their weight on it, and they still lift it up, and it feels like they're actually flying and moving around.
Holy shit!
Which really worked. It was really cool.
Even I underestimated, and it was foolish of me, just how much you know about Highlander 2. We are in the presence of a Highlander master.
Oh, yeah.
You are, I mean, there can only be one. There can be only one. And it's definitely Charnstar.
Yeah, sorry, you got to say it right.
Yeah, sorry.
That's Charnstar notably, like, messaged me, like, almost a year and a half ago saying, like, when we did the Highlander 3 episode of, like, I know Highlander 2 is on the list, and I'm doing it. It's like, yep, all right, you're booked in.
I do have to ask, because I haven't checked further up the list. Is Highlander 5 on the list at all? Highlander the Source?
No, so I double-checked this for the list. For listeners, there's 2 more sequels after Highlander 3. There's Highlander Endgame.
As well as an anime adaptation.
Well, there's an anime adaptation, and there's also the TV series.
Yes, there's a spin-off TV series.
There's Highlander Endgame, which is the 3rd in a row to ignore the sequels before it, but is like the conclusion of Highlander and the TV series. And that has 4.6, meaning it's probably only ever so slightly above Nothing to Lose. And that's why it's not on the list. And then Highlander The Source, which came out in 2007, has 3.5 on IMDb and 9.7 thousand reviews. So it's
close.
300 reviews short.
That is deserving of a bonus episode.
That is deserving of a bonus episode.
Sure.
So as someone who, and to be fair, gotta be completely honest here, I've never seen the TV show. As much as I've heard the TV show is like genuinely the best version of this story, I've never seen it. So when I watched Highlander 4, I'm not interested because this is all about the crossover between Connor McLeod and can't even remember his name, McLeod, but he's also Scottish apparently. Duncan, yes.
Duncan McLeod.
Duncan McLeod. So that's a crossover of the TV show, and I'm like, okay, I'm not really that interested. It's at least a different movie to the first movie, unlike the third one, which is just the first movie again. But The Source is not only just... It's not only batshit insane, it's also very boring and poorly shot. It's like everything I love about Highlander 2 should be Highlander the Source, because, spoiler alert, they try to explain the reason they're immortal again.
Oh my
God.
God.
In a different way.
Stop explaining it.
It's different every time.
It's the least interesting part of Highlander is why.
No, I love it. Like the appeal of Highlander is trying to guess what new law they're going to shove down your throat this time.
And what lore we have to explore.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
This movie, I mean, I just as a general like impression of this film, like I enjoyed Highlander 1 so much that I made my partner watch it, and he was like, what the fuck was that? But then I watched Highlander 3, and it, again, just as enjoyable, just as balls to the walls. This has a whole new level. Again, my first impression was I think me and Michelle watched it, and we watched the Renegade version, and that's something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, so
We need
Because that
to-
was
to
going to
go
be my
into.
first question.
Yeah, we watched the Renegade version, and within 2 minutes, we were like, "Hang on, I have so many questions.
Yeah.
Why can't they see through the shield? Why are people battling against the shield? Like, we had so many issues with the logic of the universe. 2 minutes in, no dialogue had been
As we
spoken yet.
established in the Wing Commander episode, me being who I am, we paused it, and it's not like we looked it up. I just explained it because somehow I got it. But to clarify for the listeners, this movie famously has a bunch of different cuts. I didn't want to put this into trivia because I knew we'd have to address it really early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially since it is so hard to find the original cuts these days.
Yeah.
It's really only the Renegade Cut Special Edition that you can find anywhere.
Yeah, so
Well, apparently not,
So-
because I found the theatrical cut right
oh
on
my God.
YouTube.
On
YouTube.
So we watched it last night, we watched it. When we watched it, it was like halfway through. I was like researching the differences, and I was like, okay, but I couldn't quite pass it because it wasn't being super clear. And then we got in the middle where there is the scene with Brenda, like his wife.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, I know that's only in the newer cut. So we're watching I thought we were watching the theatrical, and I was like, oh, we're watching the wrong version. So we finished watching that because I was like, okay, well, I mean, that's apparently the better version. That's interesting. And we were losing our minds going, this is the better version?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
This is better
Yes.
than theatrical? That's unbelievable.
And I scrambled all night searching everywhere, like high and low. I was like deep in these like fan edit forums of like restorations. And then I found it on like archive.org. Someone had uploaded it. And I messaged to Abby, like, I found it. I got it. And then Abby, like 2 minutes later, sent me a YouTube link and was like, is this it? And I was like, fuck! Damn it!
You sent me an angry face emoji. That's all you said.
So angry.
I feel like that single moment encapsulates why everyone loves this podcast so much. It shows each of your characters so well.
Yeah, I guess
Abby
it does.
just easily going, YouTube link. You're welcome.
Here it is. And I was like, fuck, I just didn't search. I even found a version on YouTube that I was like, oh, it's the wrong cut because here is this and there's that. And it just didn't look elsewhere on YouTube. So we watched the special edition. And then did you get time to watch the first 10 minutes of the
I watched
theatrical?
I like went through the first 10 minutes because I only had a little
It's
bit of
worse.
time. It is way worse.
It
way
is an
worse.
actively worse film.
We were confused by the good version and by the bad. I was like, I'm so glad I have watched a copy of this film for
Yeah.
context because this is nonsense.
It's
This is
complete gibberish. And also that, like, notably for the audience, I'll explain it more when we get to the overview, which I'll pivot in a second.
I just realized we're not at the overview yet.
Yeah,
I know.
We've launched into it already.
We didn't even pivot into talking about the movie. We just skipped there.
We couldn't help ourselves.
Oh, yeah, guys. Speaking of Highlander 2, this week we watched Highlander 2.
Nice. Up, dad. Too slow, baby.
Oh,
Too slow.
fuck's sake. You know what? All right, we're already in the middle of it. I'll go through the key details and I'll go into the overview. How about that?
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. Do we do the music sting now, or has the music sting already happened in the edit?
No, it's happening
Right
now.
now.
And then I'll leave like a really long
Da-da-da-da-da-da.
pause. All right, so guys, this came out in 1991. As we mentioned repeatedly, the director's Russell McKay. It's starring, once again, Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery.
Sean McAuliffe. Is that what you were going to say?
I was about to say Sean Connery. There's too many mix. Sean Connery,
Can you feel it, McConnery?
Michael
for
Ironside,
Quickening.
and Virginia Madsen. This also means that this movie has 3 returning actors, Christopher Lambert and Sean McConnery from Highlander 3, and Michael Ironside, who is also the villain in Next Karate Kid.
Yeah.
The budget for this, and we'll come. I assume either me or Charnstar will come back to it. Budget for this was $34 million, and it made 15.6. So it was not super well received.
No.
A bit of a bomb.
Did the first Highlander make a lot of money?
It made a lot of money in Europe.
Oh, they fucking love it in Europe.
Oh, it was insane for Europe. But in America, it made enough.
I don't know why I'm asking Michelle. I should be asking you every question. No, I'm kidding. You're both the masters. There can be only 2. I've changed my mind.
There can be only 2.
Well, as we learned from the Highlander mythos, that there is never only ever one.
Well, yeah.
There's always one on
Every-
another planet, or in the past, or in a cave, or there's a whole bunch and we're ignoring the other things. I still don't know how the TV show works.
Given how many things there are that change, like every time there is one, there's more. So one of them should have had the tagline, "They can be only another one."
Oh, that would have been good. Why aren't we making these movies?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think you need to be super great to make them, so maybe we can do it.
Oh, easily. You could
Not to
easily
diminish
smash
your
out a
skills,
Highlander
but just
script.
to diminish my own.
You could easily smash one out. Like, honestly, this movie, Highlander 2, it is a sci-fi dystopian film with Highlander spliced into it.
Yeah.
Because there is no need for him to be immortal to have this storyline occurring at all.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's two separate
I
things.
can't find anything on it, but I swear to God, because this was also there was a lot of story elements from a lot of different people, but it does have the original writer also involved. I don't know if this was like they had an idea, like the one different idea from Immortals, and they were like, yeah, what if we had like an ozone layer going on, and they were like, but Highlander. What if we just do both at once? I can't find any like hard facts on that, but I feel like that must have been what happened.
It must have
Surely. I mean, I saw a lot about them rejecting other potential scripts, which means at the very least, this was a script written and submitted to a producer. I don't know if that means it was always like, this is a Highlander script.
There's an interview with one of the writers who talks about just the thematic idea of the fact that this man is immortal and the world is dying. And that's where the whole thing came from.
Yeah.
I think he's full of shit, but that's just me.
But that is kind of a cool concept.
Wasn't the ozone layer big news in the early 90s because it was just something that they had discovered I think in 1985, scientists discovered that there was a hole in the ozone layer. That was the first time that they discovered it. And because it was such current news, even when I was a kid, the ozone layer and the hole over over Antarctica was like big news all the time. So yeah, it feels like they were like, well, it's been 6 years, we're due for a Highlander sequel. What are some current events so we can keep this trendy?
Yeah.
I like that we have established that the movie came out in 91, and you just said 95. Does that mean Highlander's like a Nostradamus situation?
I think so.
Should we be looking at Highlander to see what's going to happen in 2 years' time?
Well, I think what we're going to discover is that pretty soon we know how to solve the climate crisis.
Oh, 100%.
No more sunlight. All right, let me do the overview, just to give any context to the listeners. Okay, now I really struggled with this.
Yeah.
Because how do you
I will say,
condense it?
like, my favorite thing to do is tell people to watch Highlander 2, explain what Highlander 1 is, and then start by explaining Highlander 2. So I'm so excited to hear what you have to say.
Okay. I also struggled because I was like, well, we watched primarily the Renegade version, and if listeners want to watch along, that's the version they'll probably watch. So I wanted to kind of summarize both. So, following the events of the first film, a hole in the ozone layer has begun to kill millions from solar radiation. Connor McLeod, the Highlander, has helped build an electromagnetic shield around the Earth, saving humanity but cloaking the world in permanent darkness and high humidity. In 2024, McLeod is now an old man, and as he watches an opera, his memories begin flooding back to him. 500 years ago, on the planet Zeist, or in the Renegade version, a generally amorphous ancient past, McLeod and Ramirez, his companion, are leading a rebellion against General Katana. When they lose, they are punished by being sent to Earth/the future to live as immortals with the other exiles, I guess, until only one remains. And the winner will be given the prize and a chance to return to Zeist/the past. Katana is still worried that McLeod will decide to return and sends 2 assassins after McLeod, who has run into Louise Marcus, an environmental terrorist who wishes to bring down the SHIELD, believing that the ozone layer has repaired itself and the SHIELD Corporation is extorting world governments. This is about 10 minutes in. That's where we're at. That's the premise of the movie. When McLeod kills the 2 assassins, his youth and immortality is restored, and he uses the Quickening magic to revive Ramirez back in Scotland. Louise, witnessing this, falls in love with McLeod immediately, and they make love. Now we're 30 minutes in. Katana decides to come to Earth/2024 to find and kill McLeod himself, quickly allying himself with David Blake, the man in charge of the SHIELD. McLeod, Ramirez, and Louise journey to the SHIELD Corporation, and in the Renegade cut, they actually stop by a max security prison and then atop a mountain to confirm that the ozone layer has in fact healed, where Ramirez gives his life to help them. McLeod then fights Katana by the SHIELD's generator, finally killing him and releasing his quickening energy to take down the SHIELD, letting the people of the world, for the first time in 25 years, see the stars.
Wow.
That's
that was
Highlander
beautiful.
2. Thank
Brings
you.
a tear to my eye.
I think I did an all right job.
You did.
I think that's
You did.
I think that's possible.
genuinely like. I feel like hearing that, I'm like, man, I want to see this movie because it sounds like an actual movie
It
almost.
sounds exciting. listeners, this is through like layers of deduction, like Sherlock level research of what the fuck is
You
going
went into
on.
your mind palace to get this overview on paper.
Yeah.
Just me
While
standing
Michelle was
there.
talking, her eyes just rolled into the back of her head, and we don't know what came over it just then. But
Yeah, I didn't
She
write
went
that
into a
down.
trance.
That
Yeah.
was all like from memory. Just this is what
Michelle
happened.
actually went into the quickening. She was like, "Ah!" and every window shattered around her.
yeah. We had to cut that out because noise.
Noise, yeah.
In my head, both movies were playing simultaneously in my head.
Scramble.
It's flashing. So I don't really know how to begin talking about this movie other than in a very general way.
Can I just say one
Yeah,
thing?
you can. Absolutely.
This was just something that really, I just because you ended the overview on the finale where they get to see the stars
Yes.
for the first time, you and I both remarked how anticlimactic that the shield is down and it's still dark.
Yes.
Like it's still nighttime. I was expecting it to be sunny and blue and beautiful.
The
You'd
shield
see
goes
green
down.
hills.
We're so excited. We're like,
We
it's
want
not going to be cloaked in
contrast.
darkness. And we're like, oh, so we don't get to see the sun? There's
Yeah.
not even a shot of a different
That
country
it's just still
in
dark.
sunlight.
And it's not even like the sun rises and they can see a beautiful sunrise. It just stays dark and it's over. And I'm like, wow, the budget was really that low, huh? Didn't have time to give us a green grassy hill.
Honestly, when Michelle said, and they see the stars for the first time, and I was like, oh, that is kind of beautiful. Because I've always seen it the same way. I'm like, oh, so it's nighttime. Cool.
Yeah. It's just still nighttime.
How
But no,
about
it's meant to be they
stars?
see the stars
But
because
how
he's
about-
from space.
What about stars and then a sunrise?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Ideal.
I mean, given that the sun is a star, really it is then they see the star.
The one big star.
The one big star.
Yeah.
And then
And if
all
they
look
say it like that
directly
as well,
into it.
it'll sound really normal.
The one big star. There can be only one.
Yeah.
But I that was my only complaint about the entire film. Everything else was,
That was it.
mwah, perfect.
Including how like 2 minutes in we were like, wait, hang on. Wouldn't blocking out for one thing, it I think only the theatrical cut explicitly states that the shield cloaks everything in darkness. In the Renegade version, you have
Yeah.
to kind of intuit it, which is very counterintuitive.
In the Renegade version, I feel like then it's just meant to be that you're seeing this big blue shield
Yeah.
rather than, oh, no sunlight's getting in. So, because like, even through like the cinematography, it doesn't seem as dark as the original theatrical version. Like the theatrical version, it's like black and red sky. Looks insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. It looks really stressful. Like they all seem stressed out because it's all darkness, and then how somehow like I guess because they're thinking it would be like stuffy. They're like, oh, and it's really hot and humid, but also no sun definitely
yeah.
means it's very cold. It's just
The
craziness.
idea is that it's a greenhouse.
Yeah, I
This was
guess.
some of the stuff I read from one of the writers.
None of this is in the text. It's all stuff that we're trying to figure out now.
The fact that you said the humidity, I was like, how did she figure that out? Because I noticed everything was wet and damp.
Everyone's
but it wasn't until I was
sweaty
watching
and
the
wet.
documentaries. Oh,
Yeah.
so like that woman in the diner who's just the sweatiest woman
Yeah.
alive.
She is, yeah. That's how I figured out, I
wanna
think it's
be-
meant to be really hot because otherwise I feel like they would be telling us it's very cold. Because there's no sunlight! The thing that warms us! God damn it. So annoyed about it.
Have you ever sat inside of a hot car, a black car? That's all absorbing heat. This global
Yeah.
shield is just a black car
It's-
for the world.
It's never addressed how people still have food, given that I think a lot of plant and animal agriculture relies on there being some sunlight at some point.
I know the whole idea is that the shield, and forgive me if I'm getting this wrong, forgive me if I misunderstood the bizarre backstory to this film, but I understand that the people that are behind the shield, that now own the shield, that control it, are corrupt and evil and want it
The
to
TSC,
remain there.
the Shield
Yeah.
Corporation.
However, when the guy first designed it, this is something we also brought up. When the guy first designed the initial
Oh, you mean
shield,
Alan Neiman and Connor McLeod?
yeah. Why did they not think, great, we've got a temporary shield up because the ozone layer has been removed. Let's keep working on a better shield so that we can also have sunlight down the track.
It's 25-year-old tech. You're
It's not
telling me
like-
there's been no
Yeah, you're
work?
telling me that you made one shield and you were like, perfect job
One-
done. Never needs to improve.
I guess it
shield
just
is
only
there
works
forever.
this way. Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is it forever, guys. I will never improve my technology. Doesn't make
I'm
sense to
more
me.
interested in the sense that they give the idea throughout the whole film that people are paying for the shield. So does that mean,
Yeah.
like, is it a tax-based thing, or do you have to go and go like, oh, here's my money for keeping
The
up the
shield
shield?
allowance.
What happens if everyone stops paying the shield?
The
Does it
thing-
go down? Because they can't go down.
The thing that I figured out is that this was only by the fact that I watched the Renegade and theatrical in quick succession and also had other things in front of me. And I was like, oh, the Shield Corporation is particularly extorting world governments. So it's like the governments have to pay the Shield Corporation to keep the Shield. I guess you can open a hole in it optionally, is what they're telling people, because it's like, otherwise we won't shield your country and then people will die from solar radiation, which is a very empty threat, because if anyone's like, no, we won't, and then he does it, then they'll live because it's actually fine.
Yeah, very true. But he knows they'll pay because they don't want to die.
But that's crazy that every world government is like, I guess we got to pay him.
So if the government doesn't own the Shield Corporation, which they obviously don't, why do people have to pay? Are they like the mafia? They're being like, pay up, but like they're doing it to government rather than civilians.
Listen, it's a commentary on corporate greed and where capitalism will end us, okay? You can't have public utilities in the hands of private investors.
Look, I believe that, like, you know, like if you had to have a big shield, I of course would pay money for the maintenance of the shield, the upholding of the shield. Like that would just go into our taxes if the government owned the shield company.
Hey guys, I think we found the least interesting angle on Highlander 2.
There's so much more to talk about. Okay, wait, we need to talk about it.
I prefer the next hour just talking about how the shield is maintained, how they pay for it. How does it work? Because there's only one point of the shield, and it shoots out, and then it wraps around the whole world. Surely they need multiple points.
Surely
especially
at least
if they're saying they're able to open it up as like a threat to other countries.
That's
like
so
caution.
true.
Who the fuck knows?
That's
It's crazy.
so
It's almost like this movie doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Okay, so let's talk about, I think, first up, the most controversial element, which is the planet Zeist / the ancient civilization. Now, I will say, them being aliens is really stupid, but in the Renegade version, it took a lot of me repeatedly trying to explain to Abby and my girlfriend who we were watching with that I think it's just an amorphous past, because both of them were like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like, I don't know!
Yeah, it's meant to be like ancient 10,000 years, but still Earth. It's definitely still Earth.
Yeah.
But ancient Earth.
My pressing question was that the first Highlander establishes that Connor MacLeod was born in Scotland in like the 1500s. So why?
That's why they call it the Highlander?
Yeah. So why does an older version of him exist thousands of years ago?
It's why his name is MacLeod.
Yeah.
It's weird whether they're aliens or from the distant past that this guy happens to have the clan name of the Scottish clan he was reborn into, and the other guy has the Spanish name in Egypt. Yeah. That was already weird. Now it's extra weird given that he's not even from Earth.
That on planet, what is it called? Zeist?
Zeist.
Planet Zeist? Yeah, they were already called these ethnically
especially since the
distinctive
other people from Zeist have names like Katana or Kurgan.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, there is a deleted scene where, it's deleted because the Kurgan refused to come back. Clancy Brown refused to come back, where it is set up that the Kurgan works for Katana, and he was sent to Earth to kill MacLeod as well, and he failed.
That's stupid.
Right.
Yes, I hate that. Wow.
I have to say, Katana was a really fun villain. Michael Ironside performed the shit out of that role. I enjoyed every moment. The wig as well was
another thing that
incredible.
I do not like about Highlander 3 is how he's so just the Kurgan again.
Yeah.
Katana's a different breed.
He is. Like like Michael Ironsides may not have quite achieved the level of Clancy Brown, but he does a lot better than Mario Van Peebles. And you're right, he's different. Like Kurgan is like this force of agent of chaos, and Michael Ironside is like the cocky dictator. He's totally different.
It's hard to follow up the Kurgan because Clancy Brown fucking hit it out of the park.
Fucking
absolutely.
It's the fact that he looks like a member of Nitro, the glam rock band, to me. But also it's the fact that
what a pull.
My favorite moment of Highlander 1 is when he hires that sex worker to come visit him in his hotel room, and she's like, she's like, I'm Candy, and he's like, of course you are. Like, favorite moment by far. The Kurgan really sets a high fucking bar, and Katana is just as distinct and memorable in my opinion.
Well, the Kurgan never drives a train 700 miles an hour.
700 miles per hour while like heavy metal is playing in the background, and he's going such a good scene.
Guys, it literally is going like 60 miles an hour, and then he just like spins a wheel, and it starts like when it was going 250 miles an hour, we were like,
when
isn't
it was
that,
going 100.
Isn't that incomprehensible?
Yeah.
And then it goes like up and up and up. We see the people in the carriages, and they're flying backwards. One of them is like Indiana Jones, head dissolving. Some of them are smashing against
One of them
things.
is a paper mache head, like going And just for a brief second, it's the most haunting image of the whole film. Is for a flash second, you see a paper mache head with like bulbous eyes, and it cuts away.
My favorite part of that whole sequence is the fact that right before it, he goes up to a child and goes, "Hey, I bet you always wanted to drive one of these things." So did I. And I was like, when do you have trains on your planet? Did you have trains in the past? Why do you want to drive a train? And then he definitely killed that child, which is muy bueno, perfect.
Just like Michelle.
Introduce a child just to kill him instantly. Yeah.
Michelle is heavily Katana inspired.
Yeah, I actually grew up watching this movie, and I was like, man, General Katana, the good guy of the movie. I want to be like that.
You got so hard. What I love is that whole scene tells us that in 2024, the New York subway system has trains that go 700 miles per hour.
But they just
2 more
choose
years,
not
guys.
to.
2 more years.
The power. All the power that they
couldn't
wield.
you launch into orbit at that speed? And then it hits into a very thin wall and just sort of stops, and he just steps out. It's so good.
I have to know how fast 700 miles in kilometers is. Let's have a look.
Oh, it'd be like 3 times that, right?
Oh my God.
21,000?
It's
1,126.54 kilometers an hour.
Ooh, beautiful.
So, so
pretty
just over
fast.
pretty fast.
over 1,000 kilometers
When you're
per hour.
driving 110 kilometers an hour, 10 times that.
How fast do planes go? That's what I want to know. Because
And then it's like 500 kilometers an hour.
I wonder, do the New York subways even go for 700 miles?
Yeah. Well, he didn't go for an hour.
No, good point. He only went for like a minute or so.
Yeah,
Holy
so,
shit.
From one end to the other.
Most commercial aircrafts typically fly from roughly 500 to 700 kilometers per hour.
Oh my God!
This is like
really
double a plane.
If this train had wings, he would have flown.
Yeah.
He would have
Yes.
just lifted.
What I love about Katana is you can clearly see his little wig line is masked by the strange little like
Scar
painted
thing.
out scar thing on the side of his head. But it works.
Yep.
I'm like, that's a cool look. I love it. It makes him look alien-like.
So to pivot to a different bit of the movie, because we could talk about just this scene for 2 hours and I would be having a happy time. But the whole sequence of after Ramirez is resurrected, but he's resurrected where he died. So he's in Scotland. And then we see basically like Coming to America, but with Ramirez the Immortal. It's incredible.
Just pulling out a single pearl earring that's apparently worth so much he can get his way through anything.
And the guy can eye it and identify it straight away. He doesn't even have to get it checked. He doesn't have to give it a little crunch with his teeth. He's like, perfect, that's definitely worth more than this
It's not
five-piece
even
suit.
like it's bejeweled and clearly like from an old time. It is just a pearl earring.
It truly is.
I love that you could show anyone that scene, and if you tried to tell them that this is from a dystopian sci-fi, there is no way they'd believe you in that.
Oh my God, this scene's so fun. So what's the rest of the film about? Well, it's 2024. There's a shield because the ozone layer.
These aliens, they're only immortal if they're on Earth and there's no other aliens there. If they're the only one, then they're not immortal anymore.
Let's start 10,000 years ago on the planet Zeist, all right?
Well, that's the weirder thing is that Zeist was only like 500 years ago.
500 years.
The implication.
Oh my God.
But I mean, in the first one, Ramirez, let's not get that. We know there's plot holes. We don't need to rehash this.
Yeah, the question is, are we wasting our time talking about this film? That's my big question. Like, you've written a whole fucking essay.
When it comes to a plot level, I think it's not worth your time talking about. As much as the plot is great and I love it 100%, and the fact that this is how you do a sequel to Highlander, because if you try to do There Can Only Be One again, you're just going to be going in circles. You get Highlander 3, which is just the same movie.
Yeah.
This, they go, what if there was a hole in the ozone layer and they started from there and you just get pure insanity.
Yeah.
Pure
If
insanity.
there's a criticism you can leverage at Highlander 2, it's not that it's the sequel you expected.
Yeah.
Like, it's not
It's a sequel we deserve.
but not the one we need right now.
Yeah. We need it now. It's excellent.
I have we brought up the fact that Highlander 2 is not considered canon in the Highlander universe? Is that something we've disclaimed?
You mentioned it in Highlander 3 a lot, because that hurt me. 'Cause I'm like, please. As much as I've heard the Highlander show's great, Highlander 2.
to your defense, Highlander Endgame also makes Highlander 3 non-canon. Like, every Highlander sequel supersedes the previous one.
Oh, so it's not just Highlander 2.
It's basically, they're all Highlander 2.
Yeah, there is no Highlander 3. There's just Highlander 2.
Highlander 2 and 2 and 2 and 2. It's the Zelda timeline is simpler than the Highlander timeline.
Absolutely. In fact, if Nintendo can get together and just do a whole booklet on the Highlander series, that'd be really useful for me.
I actually think they should reach out to Russell McKay and go like, look, people complain about the Zelda timeline. Can we get your help? We need some Highlander energy. If Zelda awoke as an immortal...
He kind of did in Breath of the Wild.
He did a little bit, you know. It has that same vibe. But he doesn't have to hunt down everyone. So I think that should be the direction they go for Breath of the Wild 2, is he has to turn to Zelda at one point and go like, there can be only one. or rather, if it's Christopher Lambert, then it'll be, there can be only one here in the Scottish Highlands.
This is what I was saying. I can't believe that they coupled Christopher Lambert up with Sean Connery, because they really got one of the most and least charismatic leading men ever together in a room for a whole movie. Because I find Christopher Lambert frustratingly poor as a leading man. What are your thoughts on that, Charnstar?
Well, I personally love the fact that, you know, the sheer bizarreness of you've got a Scottish Highlands movie, so you cast a Frenchman as a Scotsman and a Scotsman as an Egyptian/Spaniard. But even still, like, you watch Christopher Lambert's future films like Mortal Kombat, or I just watched, what's that Coen Brothers film he's in?
He's in a Coen Brothers
Hail
film?
Caesar. He has one scene in Hail Caesar.
As is Clancy
and I'm
Brown.
like, wow. Yes, he does. And when
Yeah.
I watched that, I was like, oh my God, it's Highlander all over again.
Also, you saying that reminds me, Christopher Lambert is also in Ghost Rider 2. So he's actually been on this list 3 times.
Yes, he is.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert, over the 30 years of his career, has not gotten better. The only thing that's better is now he can actually speak English, which he couldn't do for Highlander 1.
Yeah, didn't they have to train him in Highlander 1? Wasn't he visiting a coach?
I know they had written his script phonetically, so he could just speak it, not knowing what he had said.
I wonder why he was sought out. Why was he chosen?
It's the acting equivalent. In the early days of The Clash, the bassist Paul Simonon, Mick Jones had to write the notes on the bass guitar so that he would be able to play any of the riffs, because he had to always teach it to him. I'm like, why not just find someone who can play the bass? Paul Simonon, now one of my favorite bass guitarists, but that's so weird as a decision.
Why not find a very talented Scotsman to play your leading man?
They have a talented Scotsman.
Of a different age bracket, I guess.
Why not find a talented Egyptian?
What's even more wild is that Russell Mulcahy has worked with Christopher Lambert on multiple occasions. He keeps on working with him.
He likes him. And
he loves him.
I was reading about Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery, great friends.
They were great
now.
buddies. They loved
love each
hanging
other.
out.
Yeah.
It's why we got Sean Connery in this film, because Christopher Lambert was like, nah, come on. We had a good time last time. We'll have a good time this time.
Honestly,
I will not do the film without my favorite Scotsman. I just love doing it.
it's a good accent.
It feels like I'm there in the room with him now.
It is secondary to my favorite French accent. I don't have the skill yet, but after French Dispatch and replaying through Death Stranding, the director's cut, I just love Léa Seydoux' voice. I would listen to every audiobook that was ever read out by her. Playing through Death Stranding and just hearing, I'm fragile, but I'm not that fragile. It's like a more stoic Bjork. It's fucking excellent. I love it. I love
was going to say, that is very
voice.
Bjork-esque of you.
Yeah, I want to get so much better at doing that voice, because then I can do it all day and I don't have to just listen to her.
And then you can do a whole audiobook series of Christopher Lambert with, what was her name, sorry?
Léa Seydoux.
Léa Seydoux, and just have a whole series of them speaking together. It'd be beautiful.
Oh man, just on the topic of actresses in general, thinking about women next to Christopher Lambert, I was thinking about the leading lady in this one.
Yes.
How there's always...
Virginia Madsen.
Yeah, there's always a beautiful woman tends to circulate around him. This woman had so much agency at the beginning of the film. Yeah. She's up to so much shit. She's so proactive, so confident. As soon as she meets him, and they fall passionately in love, by the way, they look at each other. I think she sees him as a young man for all of 15 seconds. They passionately make love in the street. The rest of the film is her weeping over him, the things in his house, being scared, needing his protection. I'm like, what happened to you? You fell apart as a person, as a character.
There is that great sequence where they where they first drive to the S.H.I.E.L.D. Corporation in the car, and they just shoot the fuck out of them, way too many bullets for 2 people. Turns out she was
Obliterate
in the
them.
boot the whole time, and she survived. So,
Yeah.
maybe she's
It's
the real
kudos to
immortal.
her.
Yeah, well, maybe that's how she became the head environmental terrorist as she is just her
She's
ability to just like,
indestructible.
she's ducking and weaving in the boot. We just didn't get a shot of it.
A big thing about this film was the fact that they didn't finish shooting it by the
Yes.
time they had released the film. So maybe that was just one of the things that they just
Excuse
didn't get
me?
those shots,
Excuse me?
So
I'm sure you're saving this for trivia, but what did you just say?
I'm not.
Don't try and say that casually.
I watched the documentary Seduced by Argentina, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about it before trivia. So we'll go into it now. But Charnstar, you know more. Tell me.
Well, we literally just watched the same documentary in completely separate states because it's kind of like required reading for this sort of thing. So there are whole sequences that they weren't. The bonding company specifically came in and were like, "This film has to be delivered." And this is taking too long, sorry. So they took control of the film before they had shot the escape sequence from the Shield Corporation. So you would have watched the Renegade cut, the entire sequence where they're driving down. I think that wasn't shot. That was shot 4 years later.
What?
For the Renegade version.
You would have watched the Renegade version special edition, which
Yes.
was 6-7 years after that, when they redid all the visual effects. But before that, there was the Renegade version where they had just reshot some things. That's when they first changed it from Zeist to Future Past Land. The bonding
way.
company pretty much took over the entire film, and by that point, the editor had only done one edit of the film because he didn't have all the footage, and he has said he wasn't happy with it.
Yeah.
Like even the storytelling of the Renegade cut versus the theatrical cut, it's in different orders. There's like different scenes at different points. It means like, even though like you said, it's hard to watch the Renegade version and go, this was once worse. Until you see the worst version, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, this doesn't flow at all. One of the things that I am genuinely amazed at by the Renegade version is the fact that it kind of has a narrative flow.
It does.
Like,
It more
even
so
though
than the
it's
theatrical.
It does.
Yeah,
but-
so much more than the theatrical.
So the theatrical version, the theatrical release, was done because they suddenly had this great sense of urgency to get something out.
So
Is that what it was?
It was a combination of things. They were shooting in Argentina because they went to scout it out as a location, partly because labor costs were cheaper, and partly because when they were there, they were like, oh, this place has this really interesting, like, clearly city, old world feel, but it's in some ways almost like, because it's slightly exotic architecture, it makes it feel dystopic.
Yeah, a lot of fantasy films in the 80s were shot in Argentina.
Yeah, well, it was cheap, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, they came in a little late. So that had 2 main problems. One is that by this point, the Argentinian film industry was kind of decimated. So the crew had they more and more had to rely on local crew who were inexperienced, wouldn't have worked in ages, and under-resourced. And so they just the kind of camera movements that they wanted to do really needed an experienced crew, and they just didn't have it. And all of the equipment was old and rusty and terrible. And then the other, also, it was in the middle of the Falklands War, and one of the producers and many of the crew was from the UK, so there was tensions in the crew on set.
Yeah.
As well as...
There was like a whole food fight that devolved into like a genuine fight.
Then it became like bottles. Yeah. Because they were saying like every lunch break, like bottles of wine would get consumed because that was just Argentina, baby.
Argentina, baby.
But the other thing is that the country, like after they started shooting, the country started to undergo hyperinflation, where it was now like thousands up to millions of their currency to $1. So the budget, when I said it was 34 million, it was originally 15, but it just got harder and harder because every time they would convert money, it would then dramatically decrease in value, and they wouldn't have enough budget to pay for anything. So they just were running out of money left, right, and center, as well as everything taking longer to shoot because the skills of the crew weren't what they expected. So the whole thing turned into a nightmare. And by the time of being 34 million over, the bonding company, as Charnstar said, were like, we aren't going to risk these last, I think they said they had 3 weeks left of shooting. And they were like, we're not going to risk it. It's ours now. And they locked Russell McKay out of the edit room and just totally recut it themselves.
Whoa.
I know.
That's fucked up. And it makes sense because watching the Renegade cut, I feel like there's a lot of shots that look higher quality and lower quality opposed to each other. You can see like they're shot on different equipment.
Yeah.
They're shot in different styles. Like you can feel this difference of quality between some of the shots.
It's really interesting as well because the visual effects, some of it was done during production, and this was optical effects, so it took time. The VFX supervisor was a huge part of that documentary, and when he got locked out, they pretty much did their own special visual effects all on the cheap, which is why you'll have scenes like when the quickening first happens and you've got that amazing lightning like chasing, just crawling along the ground, making things burst, and you got the lighting attaching it. It's amazing. And then it'll cut to a shot where you can see the sky, which is like this bright red grid. And every time you see the sky, it's the exact same grid. You see two different map paintings of the Shield Corporation's center, and one painting is just amazing. It's like genuinely really good quality, and the next one's just like Blanc. Hello.
Yeah, I
I'm a
think
Shield Center.
one of the producers maybe in the documentary was saying
That was the VFX soup. Yeah,
it was the VFX supervisor. Yeah, and they'd shot like 60,000 feet of optical effects shots, and then in the negotiations with the bonding, where the producers were just trying to get the creative vision across, they could only agree on I think 7 or 7.
Yeah, it was 7 feet.
7 feet. So they just reused the same 7 feet, and that's why. When we saw it and it was blue, the shield throughout the theatrical cut and the first Renegade cut is like this weird red that it was not shot for or lit for.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine living under would be hell.
Yeah.
Because
it would drive you insane.
It's also loud.
It's that one episode of Seinfeld just over and over.
I was going to say, like the chicken sign coming into Kramer's apartment.
It's also really loud, and as someone who doesn't like certain kinds of buzzy, loud noises, that would really stress me the fuck out.
Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say so that Seduced by Argentina documentary was part of the Renegade version DVD, because I've got both versions on DVD because I'm a cool guy that the ladies love. And the Renegade version has like a whole bunch of documentaries on it, and they're all made in 1994 or 2004. Sorry, 1995 or 2004 when they did the Renegade version, and they're reflecting on what it was like to edit the film and make the creative vision, except for one documentary called Between Light and Shadow, I think it's called, and it's all about the cinematography. Because the cinematography is genuinely really good, and it's on set, and it is a cinematographer talking about all of their plans and how he's working with the visual effects soup with all of these ideas, and it's very funny in hindsight knowing how much the bonding company was just like, nope, fuck all of that. Red Shield.
That's tragic. Truly tragic.
So great seeing all of these interviews in like 95 where they're reflecting. You just see one guy looking at the future, really hopeful, going, oh, you have no idea, mate. So sorry.
But the doco really makes you go, oh, even though the script is kind of gibberish, like this is a really interesting, ambitious production with a clear directorial vision.
And that's the thing, again, like I appreciate that so much. I love that it turns into, like, it's sad that it turns into a fiasco, but I love the vision. I love the attempt. So only respect for this film and for the director.
Only respect. No shame. No shame.
No shame. No shame here.
Why don't we go into some trivia? So I have so much trivia because
there's so much trivia to go. Like I feel like I've accidentally dropped some trivia throughout,
and yet none of it is the stuff that I picked out.
Amazing.
Fantastic.
So, first off, director Russell McKahey was so frustrated at being locked out of production that he tried to have his credit changed to Alan Smithy. However, a section of his contract forbade him from publicly attacking this movie before it was released, and the producers said that if he had his credit changed, it would be considered an attack and he would be sued.
Alan Smithy.
Which I included because this is not the first time we've had a director try and Alan Smithy unsuccessfully.
Yeah. Ty West attempted.
Yeah.
Holy shit.
I feel like it's like a standard thing. Definitely check all your contracts. If you're an aspiring filmmaker out there, check your contract to make sure you can use Alan Smithy, because you could be making something like this.
Yeah, if you're a young director that's been given a big opportunity, you might be a scapegoat. So make sure you can Alan Smithy if you have to.
You gotta Smithy, man.
You gotta Smithy once in a
You gotta
while.
make sure you can Smithy.
I've smithied, you've smithied. Don't know about you. Maybe you've smithied.
Here's another one.
I've smithied a bit of my time.
Yeah, I bet you have.
Here's another one, and it was one of my favorites. Michael Ironside recalled his experiences on the movie. Yeah, listen, I hated that script. We all did. Me, Sean, Chris, we all were in it for the money on this one. I mean, it read as if it had been written by a 13-year-old boy, but I'd never played a barbarian swordsman before, and this was my first big evil mastermind type. I figured if I was going to do this stupid movie, I might as well have fun and go as far over the top as I possibly could. All that eye-rolling and foaming at the mouth was me deciding that if I was going to be in a piece of shit like that movie, I was going to be the most memorable fucking thing in it, and I think I succeeded.
I think he did.
I agree.
He did.
And that's so wild to me to think that this is the first time he's playing like a wild villain, because I always think Michael Ironside, the wild villain guy, of course.
Yeah, he is the big over-the-top performance of villain guy, but he did kill it in this.
He really did. I think I was saying to Michelle, I think that Michael Ironside looks so similar to Andrew Scott. For me, I feel like they both have like that same. It's Andrew Scott is his name, right? From Sherlock.
Yeah, we did this last night.
That guy. Yeah. It's the like, slightly evil look.
Exactly, the slightly evil look. They both got the same like mania behind their eyes. They even just look the same.
But you can't tell me that both of them aren't like cuddly and sweet on a fucking dime.
Yeah.
All right. I watched Fleabag season 2. I've seen Michael Ironside in an interview. They both are really nice if they want to
be. The guys that can play maniacs are the nicest dudes. It's the leading men that you have to look out for.
Jared Leto?
Yeah. Can he play a maniac?
I don't think he can play.
He can play an Italian very well, but other than that,
I can't believe he cosplayed as an Italian. It was crazy. Christopher Lambert was so disgusted with the rewritten script that he wanted to drop out of this movie, but contractual obligations forced him to finish it, which I only included because of the use of the word disgusted.
Disgusted is a heavy word.
Yeah. But on a similar one, Christopher Lambert refused to use a fake sword for the fight scenes. In his first fight scene with it, he cut his finger to the bone and Michael Ironside dislocated his jaw in the dome fight. After these accidents, Lambert agreed to use a plastic sword.
Okay, thank God, because I've seen those swords, and as if they are real. I was like, you can't con me into thinking those are real. They look like they were made out of, like, foil. Like someone just folded up foil again and again.
Because the two did all their own stunts, they still got, like, loads of injuries.
Yeah.
Christopher Lambert cut off the tip of his finger, and also Michael Ironside chipped his tooth.
Yeah.
No, sorry. Christopher Lambert chipped his Michael Ironside's tooth.
Yeah, I read that. And Ironside specifically, when complaining about why they couldn't do it well with the real swords, was saying that precision thrusts and parries were impossible when wielding a 22-pound broadsword, which I think Scottish Highlanders would probably agree with.
It kind of makes sense because those battle scenes were fucking lackluster. Like they looked like they were moving so slowly and clunkily. Like
They're heavy. They're heavy.
I think it could have been really well done if they had the character Katana use a katana.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the name, and it's also a much easier sword to use than a fucking broadsword. Also, an extendable broadsword.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
I forgot about that.
Look,
I just realized we didn't mention the guy in the taxi who was just coming the entire time that Michael Ironside destroyed his taxi.
Yeah.
How did we forget about that?
Oh my God, I should set you up with my sister.
Oh my God, hell yeah, fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah, oh my God. Also, the extendable broadsword. Thank you for bringing that up. It reminds me of those like toy lightsabers you'd have as a kid where you'd push a button and they would extend out. Sick. Sick.
If I was a kid and I got that extendable broadsword, that'd be the best in the world.
Game over.
I'd be made.
Yeah.
Also, I can't believe we just talked about minor characters without getting to talk about Sonny Jackson, the Doctor.
Sonny Jackson, the Doctor fucks me. Hi, I'm Sonny Jackson.
He just walks into a scene and like, you're the most interesting thing in this scene easily.
I want to watch a spin-off movie about Sonny Jackson working for the control center as a doctor on site.
But Virginia Madsen is like, oh, what happened to those two men? And he's like, oh, well, I don't know about them. You know, they got mighty shot. And I'm like, hell yes, Sonny Jackson.
He seems like a character from Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? My pappy, he done won the electorate in 1929.
All right, I've got two more. One is the location above the shield, which it is a big plot device, more so in the Renegade cut about the exact coordinates of, is actually about 800 miles east of Virginia Beach, Virginia, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, not on top of a mountain, which I think is funny because it's real coordinates on Earth.
Yeah.
It's not like they couldn't have used actual mountain
They could have just
right?
taken a moment to get real coordinates, but that would have been too much for this film.
There is something I'm about to say that I don't know if you're able to put in the podcast.
Okay.
But one of the films that I'm working on, we just sent it off to QC, and one of the QC notes we got was, because there's like, at the very start, it's like, ooh, they're blowing up stuff in Istanbul. And it's like it starts on like a aerial shot of Istanbul, well, this burning building, and then
they call it
zooms out,
Constantinople?
and you see no, the QC issue was it says in dialogue that it's in Istanbul, but during the zoom out, it is obvious it's in Saudi Arabia, and that was just the best QC note I've ever seen. It's like so often it's like, oh, motion blur artifacts, or oh, you got blanking, but I've never seen like, hey, dickhead, that's Saudi Arabia. Come on.
Oh wow. Yeah, you've never been
really
called
funny.
out for just like continuity issues in that respect.
I mean, that does make me
Yeah.
think of on the last feature I was on. We did, but this was audience screening, not QC. And
Okay,
the
cool.
audience, like, there was, you're not supposed to know who's who on all the different questions, but there was one that was
Yeah.
very clearly the same person because every complaint was, it says it's set in Western Australia, like northwest Western Australia, but it's very obviously shot in a place in South Australia. So, and then later it's like, why did it take that long to get from the airport to the hospital when it's only 30 minutes in that place in South Australia? And we're like, it is set and shot in Western Australia.
Oh
what are
my
you talking
God.
about? It was just like,
Oh, really?
yeah. They were like, it's
Oh, it's so much
obviously,
better.
it's not. It wasn't. Here's the last piece of trivia, which was my favorite. An alternate
I
ending.
do have
and
two more just to ruin you.
Oh, I love it.
Oh, I
No,
think
love it.
you might be saying the thing I'm about to say, but go
Okay,
on.
because I watched it. An alternate ending, known by fans as the fairy tale ending, was shown in some European theaters, where Louise and Connor magically return to Zeist, embrace in front of a field of stars, transform into light, and fly off into space.
That's better than Greece.
So good.
Better than Greece.
So that does that isn't the trivia I was going to say, but it ties into it because
Oh, yeah,
initially
tell
the
us.
plans for the third movie was going to be called Highlander 3: The Reckoning, and it would have been about going to Zeist and taking over, leading a rebel army to overthrow the rulers of the planet. And then obviously no one liked Zeist, so they got rid of it.
Look.
Wow.
I had a good time watching Highlander 3, The Final Dimension, set in the same dimension as everything else. But I would have fucking gone off for Highlander 3, The Reckoning on this other
Reckoning.
planet. That's fucking
Yeah.
rad. That's so good.
Fucking crazy. But my one bit of so this is in all my years my favorite piece of IMDb trivia that I've ever found. Technically, it's not about Highlander 2. It's about Russell Mulcahy. You can find it on his IMDb page. Look it up. It's the best trivia ever because it's so niche and useless. So Russell Mulcahy is the only gay man to direct a Resident Evil film.
Because he did Extinction, right?
He did third one.
The Extinction.
Yeah.
Which, when I was like 15, I was like, yeah, this movie is fucking great. But that's fucking cool, man. Hell yeah.
Wow.
That is the LGBT, representation we need. We need more LGBT people. Like, I want to change that to the first gay man to direct a Resident Evil film.
Yeah, rather than the only.
Nice.
Yeah, let's change that.
Hell yeah.
beautiful.
He's the queer Resident Evil king we needed.
Yes. I feel like he's done more interesting things probably as a queer man, but no, IMDb wants you to know that he's the first one to make a Resident Evil film.
Does that mean we can claim Highlander as queer cinema? Because I
for
want
sure.
to. Because when I see this, I'm like, oh yeah,
Absolutely.
family directed this.
For sure. I think those two little evil rat men that attack him with wings, what are they called again? The rat men. The little rat men.
Did they have a name?
I
or
don't
a
think they
term?
had
They
names.
were
I
like
thought they were
strange, spiked. They look like Sonic the Hedgehog turned into a
Yeah.
real life thing, as visualized by whoever visualized Super Mario Brothers movie.
The two Sonics, total twinks, totally in love. That's my law. All right. If
No, I see
this
that.
guy can rewrite the
it's
law
Sonic
all the
and
time,
Knuckles.
so can I.
There's actually a deleted scene that not many fans know about where they just fuck. They just
fuck. And
right before they
it's-
attack him, they just fuck right there
You
in the
see
street. It's great.
everything. It's basically porn.
One of
but
the guy who
Yeah,
goes
exactly.
is like doing that while they're just fucking.
Yeah, no,
great.
it's a really good scene. Very sweaty though. That's why they had to get
Yeah.
rid of it, just because of the sweat levels.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were fine with Virginia Madsen and Christopher Lambert being that sweaty while they fuck in this humid fucking rainforest of a world. But
Yeah.
no, with the men it was like, oh,
But
Yeah.
the wings come out during sex as well. They stay on
Oh
during
yeah.
sex.
Oh, they stay
yeah,
on.
no, of course.
Do you guys want to hear some reviews?
I do.
I do.
So, guys, this has a very rare 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
What?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Whoa. Is that like the fourth time we've had a 0% at this point?
I haven't been keeping track.
I feel like we've
so
had
sorry.
at least 2, maybe 3.
Tweet me, bitch. Someone.
Someone do the work for us.
Hey, guys, you're not a bitch. This is the last, finally, we were at it, the last 4.3 on IMDb that we have.
It's been a real, it's a long time
I'm
coming.
so glad I'm here to experience this, guys.
know,
This
you're
is
here
such a
with
special
us.
episode.
You're actually the end of this long curse of the 4.3s. You are a good luck charm.
We've been stuck here for
Charmstar.
so long.
I get to push you on to 4.2.
The Rotten Tomatoes critical consensus was there should have been only one, which is great.
Classic.
And the main critic review I got was Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times, who gave this 0.5 out of 4, saying Highlander 2: The Quickening is the most hilariously incomprehensible movie I've seen in many a long day. A movie almost awesome in its badness. Wherever science fiction fans gather in decades and generations to come, this film will be remembered in hushed tones as one of the immortal low points of the genre. If there is a planet somewhere whose civilization is based on the worst movies of all time, Highlander 2: The Quickening deserves a sacred place among their most treasured artifacts. He also mocked it, saying it looked like a person standing in a puddle had touched another person who had just stuck his finger into a light socket.
Oh my God, I don't think I've ever heard such a more perfect analogy.
That is what it looks like. I mean, we sat there just going, when the sex so good.
so good.
Here's 3 reviews. You'll notice a pattern amongst them as I go through. This IMDb review is titled Better Than the Original by The Brethenrick. The Brethenrick? Who knows? I now that a lot of you will have me shot for this, but this film is more entertaining and has more action than the original. The pace is unrelenting. The screenplay has lots of comedy in it. I love the flight safety video, which was genuinely really funny.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
Michael, Rent a Bad Guy Ironside, is fantastic in his best performance to date.
Rent a Bad Guy Ironside is so good.
It is good.
This review is excellent. I see no issues.
It also reunites Lambert and Connery too. Okay, the whole "they're from space" thing contradicts the first film, but as far as oh my God, sorry, this person has really mistyped
Keep
this.
all of this in.
But-
Keep it all in.
But as far as entertaining value goes, this is the best one. I have heard great things on this site about the director's cut, so I'll give that a viewing too. 10 out of 10. Notably,
Oh, that means he watched the theatrical.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
is all based on the theatrical.
Wow.
This person only has 3 IMDb reviews, one of which is also for Highlander 3, and it's a 10 out of 10.
Was it Charnstar?
I was worried you were going to reveal that it was me, and I was like, oh no, I don't remember this, but it makes sense.
Here's another review titled Wasn't That Bad by Gashek, who sounds like they could be one of the immortals. This wasn't that bad of a movie. A lot of people say otherwise, but at least it had most of the original people in it. And Sean Connery did die in the first one, but Connor used his magic to call him back. Granted, we all could have done without them from other... Oh, Jesus. Without the "im from another planet" thing and the future stuff. But if you expect it to be as good as the first one, it's not anywhere near that good, but watch the movie for yourself and you decide if it's the worst movie ever. I've seen many things that people call movies that were far, far worse than this. 10 out of 10. This person has only 2 IMDb reviews. The other is for Highlander Endgame.
Nice. Highlander fucking fans in the house. We live for Highlander.
And here's my final review. Good Fun Romp by Tanner Baum 28. I love this film. It's really entertaining, and I think that it's sad that this film is so underrated. The first film is great, but so is this one. Highlander 3 gets a better rating than this on this site, but that film is just a copy. I think that people should just watch the director's cut and have a rethink. 10 out of 10, and this is this person's only review.
Yeah, that one was me. That one's definitely me. 100% on with this guy.
Well, I mean, that was IMDb's reviews. What are your guys' reviews? Charnstar, do you want to give us your opinion first?
Look, I'm a big believer that as filmmakers and even as people, we should be watching bad movies to learn from them. And I think that there is no better lesson than Highlander 2, The Quickening. 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Hell
Oh
yeah.
my God, that's the second 10 out of 10 ever on this
That's
podcast.
good and succinct.
Yeah.
Abby, what's
Sure.
yours?
I'm surprised there's not more.
Oh
Hey,
my
we've had some
God.
high ones, and I've given a lot of them.
Look, honestly, this film for me was just as enjoyable as like Raw 1. Like, it was just as fun.
Yeah.
It was just as fucking ballsy and ambitious, and I think it was like, again, it's up there in the realm of Ultraviolet as well.
Yeah,
so it's pretty high. Like, I really want to rewatch this already.
Me too.
I honestly think it might be like an 8 out of 10.
An 8 out of
An
10.
8 out
I think
of
that's
10.
your highest.
Howling 2
Oh, you gave
was
10.
my highest.
Yeah, that's true.
Howling 2.
Oh, okay.
Your sister is a werewolf.
I can't believe I'm the one saying this, but guys, this is a bad movie.
What? No, it's not.
Michelle, you're wrong. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is what I mean, man.
There's
She's
more
fucking
of us than there are of you.
Yes.
You are
That's
wrong.
true.
Yeah.
It is majority rules. This is a democratic podcast.
You are the weakest link.
Oh
Bye.
no! Ah! You remember the bit on Weakest Link where they fall down a hole? Look! It is a bad movie. It is incomprehensible, especially when watching the theatrical cut. But we started with the best version of this film. And I kind of get where everyone is growing. I'm not going to be as high as you guys, but I do think, again, if our midpoint is a good year and 2 is it is a movie. This is a movie, and I enjoyed it more than something that's boring. I'm going to give it 5.5.
Whoa.
It's still
Lower than I
bad.
thought.
It's still bad because some of it in the middle is kind of slow.
Yeah, it does get a bit
Yeah, no,
slow.
that's fair.
It does get a bit slow. It's not propulsive, but would I watch this again? Oh, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. In every single way, I would watch this again. Well, I mean, that was our reviews for Highlander 2, The Quickening, but you can also find us and follow us on social media. You can find us on Twitter at RateDescendPod, on TikTok at RatingDescending, or pretty please email us at ratingdescending@gmail.com. I love the emails so much. Please send more of them.
They're truly a highlight. Also, you can find us on our social media. I'm on Instagram under Abigail J. Ward.
And you can also find me on both Twitter and Instagram at michelle.stclair. Charnstar, where can we find you?
Look, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at the Charnstar. Someone already had Charnstar for some reason. Don't know why. My parents made up the name, but fuck, now I've got a the at the start of my name. Whatever. Otherwise, if you just Google Charnstar, you're not going to find anyone else.
Nice. Have you got anything you want to plug at all?
Look, as always, you should check out Red Curtain Hell on Vimeo On Demand. That's vimeo.com/on-demand/Red Curtain Hell. Use coupon code
Nice.
Picture Rangers for 20% off your rental or purchase. I ran out of breath there. I haven't done that in a while, sorry. Otherwise, just check out my Vimeo. You can find all of my short films there. I do short films. They're usually very stupid. I've got one coming out soon called Waiting for Godot, which is what it sounds like.
Love it.
If you were
amazing.
a drama nerd in year 12, you're going to know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, sorry.
I'm excited. And hey, Pizza Deliverance is, quite honest to God, one of the best short films I've ever seen. It was so incredible and delightful.
Oh, amazing.
There's a reason that I was like, I will remember this man.
Oh, I'm so glad that that's the only reason why you'll remember me. After this conversation, you'll be like, I don't remember who we're talking to, but I remember Pizza Deliverance, and that's all I really want from the world.
That's all I remember.
All I remember is that he has a "the" in front of his name for whatever reason.
I think it was the Pizza Deliverance.
Yeah, the delivery guy. I can't remember.
That was Highlander 2, The Quickening. Abby, what are we watching next week?
Next week, Michelle, we are watching The Last Thing He Wanted.
I've never fucking heard of that either. Holy shit.
Yeah, I don't know what that is either, but I guess we're going to have to find out.
Well, it's a fucking some crazy political thriller. Ben
boy.
Affleck. Oh, boy.
Oh, boy. Boo.
Oh, Anne
I'm sorry,
Hathaway.
guys.
Oh, thanks.
Rosie
Ooh.
Perez.
Rosie Perez, she's all right.
Okay.
But Chancellor, thank you so much for coming on this episode.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
thank you, guys. It was so nice to have friends again, and now I'll go back to my lonesome.
I just love your passion for Highlander 2.
Yeah.
You brought so much knowledge and expertise into this episode, as did you, Michelle.
Thank you.
But I love that you did it without a podcast forcing you to do it. That's
Yeah,
really
you did
something
it
else.
optionally.
I feel like that's almost sadder, but I also did the same thing with Ra 1, and I didn't
yes!
realize I didn't even realize Ra 1 was on the bottom 250 because I fucking love that movie.
Rowan is
so good.
amazing. Oh my god.
You are a true friend of the podcast now.
You are the biggest friend of the podcast. You're at the top of the hierarchy. Top of the pyramid again.
Oh, yeah, I'm so friendly. Yes, this is
Yes.
the best.
The bit
I'm
where
gonna friend out
where
now.
McLeod and Louise like go above the mountain so they can see they can see the sunlight. They can also see you being like, yeah, friend of the podcast.
Oh, yeah, this is what life feels like. Oh.
Fucking photosynthesis, bitch. Yeah.
That's what the shield was actually protecting everyone from. It was from my friendship.
The warm embrace.